Hello out there. This is Rebel Nerd Radio, and we are starting our new series called Devil's Den. I am Steve, and with me today is Spencer. And we are doing so. This series is Daredevil centric, if you didn't already know. So, we're going to be spending some time in this series diving headfirst into the shadows of Hell's Kitchen. Um, so I haven't really got an idea of what all specifically we're going to talk about. We really just jumped in with this first episode that we're going to work on. But basically, in this series, we're going to be exploring stories, characters, and the history behind one of Marvel's, shall we say, most underrated street level heroes.
I don't think he's an underrated character. He is really popular, but
I'd say he's popular, but when you compare him to characters like Spider-Man, Iron Man, even Thor, the Hulk, he's not really
I
honored
think
in the same breath.
I think maybe for some people Daredevil's smaller than everyone except Spider-Man that you said. It was only because of what the MCU did. But yeah, no, it's exciting to delve into the character.
I would say for for comic nerds, he's pretty popular. But for your casual fan, maybe people don't really know a whole lot about the character.
There's always Ben Affleck.
Oh,
No.
dear God. So today we are going to be discussing one of the, I'll go ahead and say one of the most iconic runs in Daredevil's history, and that would be Frank Miller's The Man Without Fear. So we'll talk about that here in a bit. What's your history of Daredevil look like in general?
The world of comics is so massive. There's so much that comes out every week. There's such a rich history with it. And so Daredevil is one of many characters that I've never disliked, but I've never liked enough to go really delve into his history. Just not because, like I said, not because I dislike the character, just because there was so much content. You have to kind of be selective sometimes of what you really want to read when you have so much limited amount of time, right? And
Yeah.
so with that being said, I haven't read much Daredevil. I was trying to think of what Daredevil stuff I've read before. I have read years ago the first volume of Frank Miller's Daredevil, where it collects all his earlier stuff, like when he first started on it, because they
Mhm.
even have big collections of all that stuff. I have the first one of those that I got cheap somewhere years ago, and so I've read through that. Although I don't remember much about it now, and I think I'd appreciate that much more now, because I remember reading it. I remember, not that it was bad, but I didn't care for it too much. I'm trying to think if I've read anything else that's Daredevil specific. Obviously, there's some things here and there that I would have rather read Daredevil would have popped up in. I've actually never fully seen the Daredevil show until leading up to Daredevil Born Again.
Oh yeah.
I've only seen the first season before, and then I finished it up earlier this year. And so, he's one of those characters that I enjoy, but no one I'm really super familiar with, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited to do this show, just because it's not a character I know, but I hear a lot of great stuff about him. Especially Frank Miller's Daredevil specifically. I remember listening into Rob Liefeld's podcast where he was talking about Daredevil at one point, and he was saying how Frank Miller's Daredevil grew so huge it became Marvel's best-selling title, surpassing Chris Claremont's X-Men. That's how big of a deal Daredevil was back in the day, which is just crazy to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I started reading. I wasn't like a huge fan when I first started reading, but I want to say that probably the first Daredevil comic I read might have been when Ann Nocenti was writing it.
Okay.
And I probably spelled her name or pronounced her name wrong, so I'm sorry. Uh, I probably pronounced that wrong. But she had a run in the late '80s, early '90s that ran probably about 50 issues.
Interesting.
Um, I think her biggest, for lack of a better way to put it, claim to fame with the series is that she is the writer that created the character, or one co-created, let's say co-created, Typhoid Mary, who was she was a big uh, adversary for Daredevil for a while. And she was created by Anne and also, oh man, who was the artist that freaking created her? John Romita Jr. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm probably not.
I thought it was just Romita, but I could be wrong. But yeah, no, it's awesome because he also did the art in the story we're about to talk about.
Yeah, he did. He did the artwork in this one. But I don't think I really got into Daredevil probably until this story came out.
Okay.
But then even then, it was like he was one of those characters that like I read here and there, just.
Sure.
But when I really got into him, like hardcore got into him, like it was pretty late, and got me to start going back and reading a lot of the older creator runs. But it was, I want to say it was probably the Charles Soule run that I read and really got into. Like I knew about Daredevil and I knew enough to like I wasn't like a Daredevil neophyte. Like I'd read enough to know about him and understand the character. And he was a favorite character, but I never like really did any deep diving into his comics until after I read the Charles Soule run, and then I just started getting. You know what? I take that back. Before the Charles Soule run, I did read the Kevin Smith run.
Okay, yeah,
and I read that primarily because it was Kevin Smith writing it. Because Kevin Smith is writing a Daredevil comic. That's cool. But then I went back and read some more, and I'm actually still in my deep dive reading phase. But yeah, I went back and read a lot of the Brubaker run, a lot of the Bendis run, some of the Mark Waid run. But yeah, I read the Charles Soule and really got into it and really liked it. And then Chip Zdarsky took over after that. Hold that thought. What's it? Is it Darsky that? Okay, so Charles Soule started in 2016. Yeah, so Zdarsky took over after him, and he had a pretty good run. So he started in 2019, and then I don't think he ended his run until a couple of years ago, late 2023, if I'm remembering right, because that's when Solid and Ahmed took over. And I haven't like really been all that crazy about his run. It's not bad. It's not a bad run. It's just not as good as the previous runs, I guess. But that run is over as well. So like there actually is no Daredevil comic going on right now, unless you count the Daredevil Punisher series that just started, which is just it's a 5-issue miniseries. Just came out last week, the #1 issue. But in March, we are getting a new series, a solo series of Daredevil. I want to say it was March. I think it's March, if I'm remembering right. But it's going to be taken over by Stephanie Phillips, which I'm pretty excited about that because I love her writing. I love everything she's written that I have read of hers. So I'm real excited to see what she's going to bring to the character. But another thing that I've been thinking about doing, and it seems like it might be a pretty bold attempt, but I think I'm going to try starting at issue #1, like the very first issue, and reading like the complete run.
You know, the only like character or team, I should say, that I really care for doing that for is Fantastic Four. But that'd be really interesting to see the early stuff of Daredevil there.
Yeah, so I mean, so he was created, just some real brief stuff here. He was created in 1964, created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett. So the Daredevil #1 was April 1964. So 1964. I've got a lot to a lot of time to try to cover if I do that complete run thing. But yeah, so he was created in 1964 by Stan Lee, who of course created a lot of Marvel characters.
Yeah.
Which brings us to The Man Without Fear, which is what we are going to be talking about today. So this was put out in 1993. It was a 5-issue series written by Frank Miller, and the artist was John Romita. How do you pronounce his last name? Is it Romita?
I'm not 100% sure.
See, I'm gonna have to Google this because I think I've been pronouncing his name wrong my entire life.
Oh, that's funny.
Pronounce John Romita. Okay, it's Romita. Romita Jr. Okay, but he was the illustrator, and it is essentially, I mean, it's a kind of how would you say it's a reboot? I mean, maybe a reboot, but just kind of a retelling of his origin. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but this was actually not Frank Miller's first foray into Daredevil.
Right, I knew that.
This was actually his third run on Daredevil. His run before this was Born Again. And I think his debut was in the late 70s, maybe early 80s.
Yeah, I was looking here. First Daredevil issue he wrote is 158. And then, so he wrote a lot around this era because there's these, like I said, the different collections, which these older printings of these collections I was talking about are actually harder to come about now. I was literally just looking at it and I was like, how much is it to get for a volume 2? Oh, $90? Never mind, because that's just how, like, no, that's the list price for it, but like older printed comics, like when they're out of printing, they're out of printing, you know?
Yeah.
It's harder to find them as time goes by. So
yeah, so this is actually his third run of his third Daredevil series. But Frank Miller has definitely left his mark on the Daredevil franchise in general.
sure.
He created the character Elektra.
Okay. Yeah.
He created the character. Oh man, who else did he create?
I mean, I know he's had his hand in a lot, but I don't know specifically what.
Yeah, he has created quite a few. Trying to think. He did. Okay, of course, he didn't create Typhoid Mary because that was Anne. Did he create Bullseye? See, no, I don't remember if he did or not. No, he did not. Actually, John Romita's dad created Bullseye. And Bullseye first appeared in, what was it, 1976, Daredevil 131. Anyway, Daredevil Man Without Fear, 1993, 5-issue miniseries, explored his origin. Matthew Murdock explores his childhood, talks about the accident that caused his powers and his blindness, talks about his father's death. It's really one of the most iconic Daredevil stories out there. I do this comic book club thing every month at a local comic book shop. It's hosted by the local library system.
Nice.
In November's club meeting was about this book. Surprisingly, of the people sitting around the table at this discussion, there were only 2 of us that liked this book.
Interesting.
Like, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say hate. There wasn't like a hate. It was just a lot of just didn't like it, like for one reason or another.
I'd be curious as to why, and I guess you could delve into it when we actually get to talk about the story specifically, but I'm definitely curious as to why some of the people's disconnects were.
Well, some of them didn't like it because of the artwork, strangely enough. They didn't.
See, what's funny, and we'll get into this maybe a little more, but I was looking at this and I was like, this is John Romita Jr. is a great artist in some cases. This is kind of during an era like 90s and early 2000s was like John Romita Jr.'s like prime era, I think. Yeah. I don't think his art is as terrible as some people say nowadays, but I think you could definitely say that maybe it's not as good as it used to be. Same thing with Frank Miller's art. Like his art's definitely not been as good either. And so, but I was looking through this because I was thinking, oh wow, this is like actually really good like art from him back then. And he also made some art decisions that I really liked as well. Unless there's things that Frank Miller was like, hey, do it this way, which I could see as well. But like there's some spots, there's one page in issue 1 that I really liked with his art direction specifically. But
yeah, we're going to get into the artwork a little bit here in a minute, but I wanted to jump first into the whole origin story. So are you familiar at all with the Stan Lee version of Daredevil?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I am not.
So generally speaking, and this isn't really specific to his origin per se, but when Stan Lee created him, he was a lighter toned character, and Stan Lee portrayed Daredevil more as a superhero.
Sure.
Whereas Miller's is more gritty and dark, and depicts him more as, like your street level vigilante, which I think is a better telling of Daredevil in general, not just for Frank Miller, but any story where you're telling a Daredevil story. It's best to, I think it's better when you portray him as your street level kind of player. But the Daredevil origin specifically, the biggest difference between Stan Lee's and Miller's is that the truck accident in the original telling of the origin happened when Matt Murdock was in college. So he was much older.
Huh. That's interesting.
A lot of people forget that origin because, again, Miller's, where the truck accident happens when he's a kid, is the one that's more well known.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the reasons why this is an iconic story for Daredevil. Is it really impacts or has an impact on the rest of Daredevil storytelling going forward. And we're actually going to get into the influence that this book has had a little bit later. But yeah, the origins are a little different. He's not as much a superhero per se. Clearly, the costume is different. In this story, and his overall tone is a lot different than Stan Lee's. But what are your thoughts on the Frank Miller origin story?
It's interesting that I was reading it and it's like a lot of the story it felt like I already knew because the Netflix series was very faithful to this origin in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's a bunch of details they missed out, but the origin stuff that we did get in that series, it's obviously one of the big things that the story is you're going to get into more later with the impact there. And so it was interesting just because it was like I was reading, I was like, I know this because like it's the big thing now. But I thought the writing was really great. I like it was a super easy read. I remember I just opened it up and next thing I know, 1 hour later, I'm done with it. If even an hour, I don't even think it took me that long. Just because like it's such a page turner. It's such a great read, and it's like one of those comics I could not put down, like because it was just that good. But yeah, no, this one is. It really is like reads as a definitive origin for the character. That's like you don't need to, every now and again we get like a new kind of origin story for a character, and it's like this one you kind of really don't need one. You said that it reinvented his story in some aspects. This one really took what was before and makes it better. And this is one of those reasons why I'm never really ultimately against when people try to do new things with characters, is because sometimes it's better than what came before. And when it's better, that's what it matters. People only get mad at the stories if it's not better, because then they complain about it just so they can complain. But this is like one of those that was like it was great. And so I thought it was a great origin. Even though it felt familiar, there's a bunch of details and story points in there throughout that also made it different as well, of being like, oh wow, that's like a big impact on the story there that like the Netflix series never mentioned or something like that. And so it was awesome.
Like I really think that this origin kind of became the blueprint for all future Daredevil stories. I mean, you got whereas and not saying that the original story was bad, but Miller kind of rebuilds Daredevil as kind of a less, shall we say, goofy character,
Yeah.
and rebuilds him as like this, like I've mentioned before, a street level hero, but well, and then not even really hero, but a vigilante, and the way it builds him as a kind of a flawed character.
Yeah.
You know, he's because he was shaped by, and not to say other Marvel superheroes aren't, but in a stronger way, I think he was shaped by his trauma and his morality.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just, you know, Matt Murdock. He's just smart kid who gets hit by this. Well, he doesn't even get hit by the truck, but he gets hit with this radioactive goo that blinds him, gives him powers, and so he's.
Don't try it at home, by the way. Just saying.
Yeah, no, I mean he's like he's an angry kid. I mean he understandably so. He's angry because he's like, oh, well, you know, you got to imagine he's got like this why me mentality. You know, why was he was trying to do good, like he was trying to save this old guy, and you know this is what he gets for his good behavior. But not only that, but like as a character, you know, his trauma shapes him, and the death of his father shapes him. But his environment is as strong an influence on the character as anything else. Like, I don't think a lot of people think this way about not just this Man Without Fear story, although in a big way, but future Daredevil stories. Hell's Kitchen is almost like a character of its own. Like the way it is shaped, the way he acts and feels. You know, it's Hell's Kitchen. It's violent. It's desperate. It's almost like it's almost like a Marvel version of DC's Gotham.
I was literally just thinking about while you were saying about all this stuff of all the similarities that Daredevil and Batman has, which is really interesting to when you look at their histories and stuff.
Yeah,
it's just interesting because they are very much parallels of one another.
they're definitely in both cases. Their neighborhood and their environment shaped who they became.
Yeah.
But even more so, I think in this story, I think Hell's Kitchen was a very strong impact on him as a child, and even more so as a vigilante, because he, you know, goes away to college and ends up coming back to Hell's Kitchen. Like he's got to, you know, it covers a lot of ground in this story. He's like, you know, he's gone to college. He's graduated college. He's got a job as a lawyer, and then ultimately gets fired because of the decisions he makes in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump into some of the characters in the Man Without Fear story. And we won't jump right into Daredevil himself, but let's start with his dad. So another different thing about Miller's telling of the origin is specifically related to his dad. He's not he's depicted by Miller as a flawed individual as well. Like I don't remember how he was depicted in Stan Lee's, but I don't. I guess I'll find out when I go back and
Was
reading.
quick side tangent? Was that origin like in the original issue of Daredevil where it told him like
Don't remember. It's like
because it would be really interesting as a second episode idea if to go back to that very first one to kind of compare.
Oh, I think we should. Yeah, I think we should go back and read Daredevil #1, and
or even maybe the first few or something. I don't know. But
so
anyway,
so it did cover his father's murder, the original issue #1. And he was a boxer in the original story. Maybe this character wasn't. I think the biggest difference is that maybe he was a little bit more flawed in the Miller telling of his story.
Sure.
Than original.
Yeah.
And again, I really think our next episode just needs to, let's go back to the beginning.
Let's do it.
That one. Yeah, just tear into issue #1. But so Murdoch, he's battling Jack Murdoch. He's a boxer. He's a little older, so he's not. He's kind of washed up. He's very adamant that Matt not take his what am I trying to say? His path. Avoid fighting at all costs, and concentrate on working your mind. But then ultimately, he's got this moral, proud mentality that he refuses to throw a fight while he's working for the Fixer, and that causes his murder. The Fixer has him killed, and that's kind of a defining moment in Matt Murdoch's life. I mean, that's and it seems. I mean, this is kind of a thing that happens a lot in comic books. You've got Spider-Man, death of Uncle Ben. He becomes a superhero. Yeah. Batman becomes Batman because his parents are murdered. And I mean, it's a recurring theme. But here we are. His dad is murdered. For not wanting to throw this boxing match, and that's kind of a defining moment for him, and he decides to become Daredevil, and kind of goes back on his word to, he promises his dad he's not gonna get into violence. He's gonna stick to being a student and working his brain. He kind of goes back on that one, but he does it because he wants to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about Jack Murdoch?
I mean, yeah, he's just that central figure that is just integral to the character. I did really like how in this story specifically we got to actually get to know him a bit better before his ultimate demise. Yeah. I think it really showcased his character really well, more so than what I've seen previously of him, of just saying that ultimately, first and foremost, that he cares for his son. While he could have easily saved himself and he knew what he was getting into, it's what makes this story even more tragic. Because I don't think even the telling of like the Netflix show made it this obvious. He knew exactly what he was getting into. He was ready for a beating, maybe even to die that night that he did. And first and foremost, he wanted to remain that icon, not necessarily just being a father figure, but somebody who doesn't give up, somebody who is that sort of hero in a sense to his son first and foremost, and so it made it a really tragic story that really worked. That just made the story hit even harder. So, but yeah, it was great.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And I think I mean we kind of skipped over it, but we're talking about a single father here. If you're not familiar with Daredevil, he's a single father. Daredevil's mother, they don't really get into what happened to her, but we do know that she left.
Right.
In The Man Without Fear, they don't really explain like did she die but no, she left. So it's a single dad trying to raise a son. So you've got the father, and then you've got another kind of father figure introduced. I
I don't know if I'd say a father figure, but definitely a mentor figure.
well,
Is what
I
I'd
mean,
say.
somewhat a father figure, but yeah, more so a mentor. Um, okay, so the character that I'm thinking of, I don't think I don't think this was his first appearance. I don't think Man Without Fear was his first appearance, but he was created by Frank Miller, and I am referring to the character Stick.
His first appearance was on Daredevil 176.
Yeah, that had to have been Frank Miller's first run of Daredevil.
Yeah, it was during like his initial foray. Yeah.
But here's a picture of him. That is just we're gonna get into Romita's art, but I just I just love this artwork here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Stick was a character. He's like Matt Murdock. He is blind. And although it doesn't get into it in this specific comic book, he trains Matt to essentially become Daredevil, but he also trained. He was one of Elektra's trainers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you've got this. So he trains Matt, and he's kind of a harsh character. He's almost a drill sergeant type character in a way, in that he's very cold. He's very disciplined. He's kind of breaking them down to build them back up stronger. And ultimately, he ends up leaving Matt. And he kind of leaves because he feels like Matt's getting soft.
Sure.
But again, he is another important character in Matt Murdock's life, and he kind of pushes him to become the character that he becomes.
Yeah.
But he was. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say this is the one character that I felt like nothing really changed about him that I already knew. But I think that's just also more of a testament, not to that the story was bland, but a testament to how well the Netflix adaptation. Because I know I keep on going back to that, but that's what I think most people
No, that's
feel
fine.
of Daredevil. And I think that just shows how faithful that series was to a lot of his things. Stick was a huge part of that show as well, and that version of Stick pretty much exactly aligns with this version of Stick as well, just showing how well that adaptation was, but then also, that's his character was just done really, where it came from is really good. So
yeah, the Stick character was really done well in both The Man Without Fear and also the Netflix series. Moving on, next character that I want to talk about is Elektra, who again was a character created by Frank Miller. I don't. Yeah, this is also not her first appearance, but is a character created by Frank Miller. But she has. So Elektra as a character, just in general, not necessarily specific to this book, she has served various roles in Daredevil's life. She has been love interest. She has been adversary. She has been ally. Back in the when was it? It was in the 2020s. So not very very long. She ended up becoming Daredevil in the comic book series. And that's a long story for another time. We won't get into that. Why?
There's so much to delve into with Daredevil, which is why I'm excited to do this. And this is one of those places that's a great, beginning place. It's a great definitive origin to talk about. So, but yeah.
So in this book, she is primarily a love interest. She is seen as like this wild, thrill-seeking, violent, unstable character. And ultimately, I was going to pull up a picture of her. So here's the John Romita version of Elektra.
Yeah, she was nuts in the story.
Interesting look at this character.
Yeah.
So Elektra. So ultimately, their relationship is very passionate, but ultimately kind of destructive for Matt. It's not a great relationship for him to be in because of her instability and her earlier chaotic lifestyle. And really who she is as a character is a good representation of how Matt could have turned out if he kind of embraced his anger and embraced like a chaotic mindset. She's a mess. I mean, Elektra is just, she's unpredictable. Yeah. She's just a mess. And then, her father dies, and that kind of pushes her over the edge and kind of out of his life. But any thoughts about Elektra specifically from this book?
Yeah, I think this is maybe the story I've kind of ever most been into Elektra. Like, Elektra is one of those characters that anytime I've seen her pop up, I never really cared for her character. But I think maybe sort of learning this foundation of her character has kind of made me more interested into possibly learning more about her character.
Yeah.
And she is like, I don't know, she is a very intriguing character, I felt like, in this, where, having this unpredictable, but then also this interesting love dynamic in the story was just really interesting, I felt like.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, I think it helps provide a solid base for when we'll hopefully eventually get to covering some stuff about like Elektra specifically later on as well. So, yeah.
And the thing about Elektra, like Daredevil issue number 181 is one of those comic book issues that kind of goes down in history as one of the one of those popular issues of comics in general, just overall. Like okay, obviously casual fans know, but like your comic book geeks know that issue. Like,
Sure.
We're talking 181 is the issue where she gets killed by Bullseye with her own with her own weapon, and actually the Ben Affleck movie kind of, although the character Elektra and the character Bullseye in that movie was awful. They did that scene well if they were trying to reenact issue 181. But Elektra definitely is one of those characters that if you don't know a lot about her, she's definitely a character that if you're interested in Daredevil in general, you need to know Elektra because she is such a huge part of his life. And even more so like in the last 10 years, because she has just become like she's his ally. I don't know what Solid and Ahmed has done with her. I do need to go back and read that run. Actually, I was having this conversation with you a week or two ago that I'm actually not as far behind in that run as I thought I was.
Right. Yeah.
But I may need to go back a few issues to remember what the hell's going on here.
Sometimes it be like that.
Yeah, like I remember that his run starts off with Matt is not Daredevil. He's a priest, and that's what he does. He's a priest working at some kid's home, and I don't remember where it goes from there. But I'll have to reread. But I don't remember what he did with Elektra. But prior to the Solid and Ahmed run, Elektra is very important to the Daredevil storyline. There's actually how many issues was it? Shit. There were several issues written by Chip Zdarsky that was Daredevil, the Woman Without Fear, and it was the story of Elektra being Daredevil. See, now I'm looking this up because I can't remember how many issues that was. Here we go. Okay, how many issues was it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, this isn't helpful. It was written by Chip Zdarsky. God dang it. See, that's just okay. This is just going to tell me to click to the next issue. Oh, because I'm on. I see what's going on here. This is just telling me okay. It's part of the Devil's Reign event. Did you read that at all?
No, I'd excited to delve into that as well.
That might be something you want to read. Yeah, it looks like that may have been only 3 issues long. The Woman Without Fear, not Devil's Reign. Devil's Reign was a lot more.
Yeah, I know there was a lot to that. Yeah.
But yeah, The Woman Without Fear was 3 issues long, and is basically it's Elektra as Daredevil. Where was I going with this?
I don't know.
Very important character, and this retelling of his origin and of her origin in Man Without Fear, like with Matt himself, is kind of a blueprint for later on down the line. Okay, we talked about Stick, we talked about Elektra, we talked about Jack. Let's talk about a character who isn't as big an adversary to Daredevil specifically in this book, but is definitely the starting point for years and years of story between these two characters. I'm talking about Kingpin.
Right.
Wilson Fisk. So Kingpin is he's a crime lord. So he was created by Stan Lee as a Spider-Man villain primarily.
Right.
But eventually becomes one of Daredevil's most important adversaries.
Right.
So you've got this. He kind of operates in the shadows. Very powerful character, but just he's not. He's kind of behind the scenes, but he's kind of the embodiment of the corruption of Hell's Kitchen and New York in general. And like I said, he's in the shadows, so he's not like in the spotlight. But to me, he really sets the tone for Miller's grounded street level crime version of the Daredevil comics.
Yeah. What really stood out to me was how he was involved in this story specifically. Was it shows how important he is of Hell's Kitchen without him being without directly coming into contact with Daredevil himself.
Right.
And the way it was originally written into, where it was like he made his greatest mistake at this one point, and through this kind of just happenstance of in the story where Matt Murdock came back to New York for a bit, it's what ultimately set him up of being this protector of Hell's Kitchen here, with this kind of just happenstance of, if it wasn't for this one incident that then led him to find this whole operation going on by Kingpin.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was something that was really interesting to see, that if it wasn't for that one act, or that act that Kingpin's goons did at the time that he directly ordered them to do, there would arguably be no Daredevil.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to just see how it plays in there, and how the, as we would later know, Kingpin's sort of downfall in some case kind of begins of his mistake, you could say. Which is just, I don't know, it was really interesting to see how he played into the story. I thought it was cool.
For sure.
Also, brutal entrance, by the way, in this story too.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so before we end this character breakdown portion, we of course need to talk about the character himself. So Matt Murdock / Daredevil. Miller portrays him as this kind of bullied kid that, you know, he has a pretty good relationship with his dad, promises not to use violence, wants to use his mind instead. But, you know, he's involved in a couple of events that kind of shape his whole life. You know, first being the accident that blinds him and traumatizes him and gives him these weird powers. And then, of course, the trauma of his dad's death, which further transforms him. You know, this, and then you've got Stick's training that turns Matt from this withdrawn, bullied kid with these weird powers that he doesn't understand, and evolves him into this weapon. and then you get, then you get that and tie it in with his relationship with Elektra, and that kind of shows that one. It kind of sets the tone for Matt as a character in his. He's got a long history of failed relationships.
Yeah, that's true.
But this is just kind of the, the start of all that. But Miller has, in telling the story of Matt Murdock and Daredevil, really he tells it really well as and portraying Daredevil as a character that he's not Daredevil because he's got this like idealistic what's the word I'm looking, this idealistic moral compass, but more so almost out of necessity. Like, and this is where we get back to talking about Hell's Kitchen as a character. Hell's Kitchen needs him. And that's primarily the impression that I get as to why he becomes Daredevil. Like,
yeah.
Hell's Kitchen needs him, and he's got these powers that allows him to help.
Yeah.
He
I mean, obviously he's just the main character. He was written really well in this. Great version of the character here, and it really is like he was just done so well in the story. It's kind of like what hasn't been said already with how much just how good it is. There was one part that I was wanting to mention specifically that I really liked with the direction is in issue 1 is when he first gets hit, and he's taken, and the scene where he like is taken by the ambulance and he's on hospital. But I love the art direction in this part specifically with the story where all of what is said, all the narration that is said, is like in these dark panels. And then you get to see flashes of what's really happening. It's great as it's kind of not necessarily his internal narration, but I read it as a way where it's him still the story of what's kind of going on almost from his view, though, as it's describing what's going on where he literally can't see during where the story is being told. And so anyway, that was one of those specific things I want to specifically bring up about it is like, I really liked how they did that for like 2 pages in the story.
Wow, I'm trying to find those pages. Do you have a link that shows those pages?
It is. I could send you pictures of them really quick.
Yeah, just send me some pictures and I'll show you what I remember what you're talking about, but I can't seem to find the frickin'.
It's like halfway through issue 1, but I'm sending it to you right now so you can.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can see it there.
Yeah, see, I read this as a whole volume, so I didn't really.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things where the art direction, or I don't know if it was Frank Miller specifically being like, tell it this way, but it really stood out to me how it was done, and that same format was used for the page after as well, and so I thought that was really good.
Okay, I'm pulling it up now. And that's a good segue for the next thing I wanted to talk about. Main topic I wanted to talk about was the artwork.
Yeah.
Like John Romita's artwork, a lot of the people that were at that roundtable discussion, they just seem to not like his artwork in this, and I think it's fabulous. I mean, I think his kind of blocky, gritty style was perfect for the tone of the story.
Yeah, it really worked. It's one of those things where like I typically when reading like these street level stories, I don't feel the brutalness of like some of it. but like in some of the later issues when you actually get to fighting and like, you know, you see the crack or the bop or whatever it says,
Yeah.
you kind of feel it, and you feel it in a way where it's not that comical Batman wham bam or whatever, but like that, like, ouch, you know, like as if
Yeah.
you're watching like an actual Daredevil TV, like when you're watching the Netflix show and you're like, oh, that's just brutal, you know, and it gives you that little slight sense of discomfort. I thought it was portrayed so well where during a couple of the action scenes in this mini series, I actually genuinely felt that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, his art is great in this. It's one of those stories where I think his art really shines, and so that's, I like, yeah, that shot is great. Was it? There's another shot I really liked. Maybe it's the very final page. I'd have to look, but yeah, there's a bunch of great.
Yeah, I really liked
Art.
this one as the training sequence. Another one that I really liked was this one.
Yeah, and seeing though too is just that other big influence of how we see. I don't know. Maybe you could answer this if this is where the black suit Daredevil came from.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Okay. So,
yeah.
and you know, and that was such a huge influence as well as we've seen later on with like, you know, like it just, it's the prominent suit in this. Like, I don't know, it just really shows like how well Netflix did their first season there with adapting
I
so
really
much of
liked
the
this
story.
sequence too.
Oh yeah, it was great seeing a bunch of the action and how there's some other bits where it shows the character's actions through like one continuous action of the person doing it there.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, overall, like his artwork was just perfectly sequenced with Miller's writing.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Well, we keep going, we keep touching on it.
Yeah.
But one of the topics I wanted to talk about was how the Man Without Fear has influenced other Daredevil media.
Before we talk about that specifically, I was wanting to bring one thing that I think it kind of influenced on a broader spectrum that
Okay.
was that I found interesting as well that I was thinking about, and I was just looking it up as well. Is this story came out in 1993? I don't remember when darker comic stories started really becoming a thing. I think that's kind of like widely attributed on the bigger scale with Killing Joke, which came out I think shortly before this. Um, but this story, when you as far as you think of Marvel, this is a really dark story for Marvel. Like, and when I read this, I was like, this feels like a Marvel Knights story. Which, for
Mm.
anyone that doesn't know what Marvel Knights is, that is their imprint that they made in the late 90s, which I was just looking up the date it came out in 1998, where that's when they specifically used all those characters that fit in a darker theme to actually, or darker tone, to actually make full use of their grittiness. And I feel like this story specifically is probably what really helped pave the way for that eventually. Because
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not gritty Marvel stories before this, but this has to be one of the first huge, if not the first huge, gritty Marvel stories to help really pave that way. To where I'm sure when Daredevil came back later, he was a Marvel Knights character. I think you know that we got Black Panther as a Marvel Knights character or run, and all sorts of characters like that. And so,
Absolutely. I definitely think that Frank Miller's Man Without Fear was a precursor to the whole Marvel Knights
yeah,
thing. I mean, that was, yeah. And yes, Daredevil was a part of Marvel Knights for a while.
yeah. It was just interesting because when I was reading it, I was like, this feels like a Marvel Knight story without it actually being a Marvel Knight story, which it also, I think, is what probably made the story really special is because, as I mentioned, it's Marvel generally doesn't go dark and gritty. Marvel still doesn't generally go dark and gritty. You know, they're generally meant to be a brighter, happier universe in a lot of ways, you know? like how the original Daredevil's depicted. And so it's one of those things where I think really makes the story stand out, especially for its time. I'm not quite sure what other dark stories Marvel would have done before this, but with as big as the story is, with being such a widely acclaimed Daredevil story, it really feels like it paved the way for a lot. Broader than just Daredevil, but obviously it paved the way a lot more, as you're about to get into with.
No, but that is a really good point you make, that it's not just influential to other Daredevil media, but influential to comics in general, not just with Marvel Knights. I mean, you've got like his carryover into what are some other, like Marvel Knights is definitely a big one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like storytelling in general. I think you're right. I don't think Marvel really got dark until this happened. Like even the Frank Miller stuff that he did on the character Daredevil wasn't anywhere near as dark as he got with this.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot. Yeah, like I generally don't know, and like when trying to research something like that, it's too broad because that's such an open interpretation for Google. I feel like, and so it's I don't know.
Yeah. But bringing it back to Daredevil, I mean, one of the easily biggest impact it has had on Daredevil media, and we've mentioned it already a couple of times, is the Netflix TV show. Just a few things. The black suit, taken directly from the pages of The Man Without Fear. The portrayal of Stick.
Yeah.
How he is portrayed. And then the Kingpin's shadowy influence, like directly from this book. Like, you don't say his name. Yeah, but man, what are some other things about Netflix, the Netflix series that you feel like were pulled from the pages of The Man Without Fear?
I mean, like those are obviously the main things. I mean, the whole Daredevil black suit, like that's pretty much all of season 1. And that's pretty much all of what this is. Like Daredevil season 1, when it goes into his backstory, like Daredevil season 1 was really kind of just a great show adaptation of this overall. Obviously, it expanded a lot more because we're talking about, was it 10 episodes? Well, however long it is of.
Oh, the first season?
Yeah.
Give me just a second here. Daredevil Netflix season 1 is yeah, I know it was 3 seasons.
I want to say it was 10 episodes though, and so like obviously 10 episodes
13.
too much. 13, so even more than I thought. Meaning, obviously you can't just do 13 to directly adapt this. Obviously they added in a lot more of like other big things with Daredevil's mythos from just Daredevil in general, but at the core of it, that season 1 was this story, I think. And
you can really tell that the writers of the Netflix series did their homework.
Yeah,
like
it's truly what makes this story, or not sorry, this story, but Netflix Daredevil stand out so much, is not a lot of Marvel or comic book shows in general do that homework and really pays that massive respect to the stories they came from. And that's really why I do think that Netflix Daredevil is like one of the best comic book shows, period.
Oh, for sure. And it just kind of like the way that they did their homework on this issue specifically, or this storyline specifically, is a testament to how influential this book is. And although we joke about it, it's also influential to the 2003 Daredevil movie. Although I don't, I just went on. I'm gonna be real. I went back and rewatched this about a week or two ago. I rewatched it because I saw that it was on Disney, and I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch this, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, there are some things taken out of The Man Without Fear for this movie, but generally speaking, this is not a good Daredevil movie.
I've heard the director's cut makes it better, so I don't know. Yeah,
for me, and those of you out there watching, you can disagree with me, and that's fine. You can call it a shit take, but I think the biggest problem with that movie was the way that certain characters were portrayed.
Sure.
That being said, that is a comic book purist point of view.
I feel that. I completely feel that. Like that's.
And I'm not even talking about Kingpin. I thought Michael Hart Dugan, whatever, however you say his name, he did an incredible Kingpin.
Sure.
He did amazing. The rose, like he had the rose, pulls directly out of this book. I'm talking specifically characters like Bullseye and Elektra.
Sure.
They were done horribly. like as soon as the first time I saw this movie and they revealed the character Elektra, I'm like, no. And I like Colin Farrell as an actor. Did not like him as Daredevil or as Bullseye rather.
I forgot that he played Daredevil on that.
Did not. And when I rewatched it, like I was saying, just like a week or two ago, I'm watching. I'm like, oh man, I forgot about this awful version of Bullseye. Oh man, so bad. And I'm not even going to mention the Elektra movie. Oh my god, that was awful.
Never seen that.
But despite the fact that that was an awful movie, it did draw inspiration from this book. Man, what else out there in Daredevil media has drawn inspiration from this? Because I mean, really, we didn't have any Daredevil movies other than the Ben Affleck. Really, the biggest influence has got to be that Netflix show,
right? Yeah,
or not the biggest media that was influenced by Man Without Fear has to be the Netflix show. But yeah, so it was just so good. Well, let's go and wrap up. What are some final thoughts that you have about Daredevil, the Man Without Fear? Did you have any favorite moments, or are there any other points you want to bring up about it?
I said the main points already that I wanted to bring up, but favorite moments. I don't know. There was definitely just some great stuff in it, like overall. I think there's a lot of great little moments scattered throughout it that was just really, really good. I like specifically how the last two issues kind of broke this, but I liked how each of the first three issues were each like its own part of the story, like self-contained story, specific parts of Matt's life. I really liked how you specifically played into his law school aspect of him, of his character. And then the last two was like kind of a big finale issue 4 where it's about him going back to New York and why he stays there. And so like, I don't know, it was generally just a great story overall. It really is a definitive origin Absolutely brutal. It holds up really well as it's come out. 32 years at this point, and so it's it, it
It's been a while.
it's been a bit. It's been a bit.
Thanks for making me feel old.
It's a story that predates me, and so but it holds up really well though, which it's cool to see. But it was generally just a really good read. I find it interesting, like I said, that the people that you were talking about this with didn't find it that good, because I was here thinking, holy cow, this is a great book. As I mentioned a bit earlier in the show, I'm excited to delve into more Daredevil stuff, because he's one of those characters that I just haven't read much of, and this really is a great starting place. I see why this is the story, why you pointed me to it first, and this has me excited to go look at Daredevil stuff. And I think even a great thing to set up all of those future Daredevil stories to read, so I could get better appreciation of characters. Like, while any number one of most runs aren't typically a bad jumping place to get in, you don't get a bunch of that motivation as to why some of those characters might feel that way. I think, as I said earlier with Elektra, this is the first story where I kind of really opened up and it's like, oh, like, I thought Elektra was really interesting. I never felt about that. And so I think this story is going to make things open up of being like, this is why I will personally care about Elektra more, or seeing the initial involvement as to why Daredevil's involved in Kingpin's operation. It's going to have big ripple effects that might change how I feel about Daredevil for the greater as we continue. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and next episode we'll talk about the issue that started it all.
Yeah.
So if you liked this episode, come back for the next one. If you're watching this for the first time, let us know what you think about the new series. Yeah. So this will be showing up on our Patreon first for early drops. And then give it about a week or so, and I'll drop it on our YouTube channel at Rebel Nerd Radio. But where can they find you, Spencer?
Go look up the Dingiston on YouTube. Actually, at the moment of speaking, I'm very close to 200 subscribers. I'm like 3 away. And so I'm inching closer there. I'm hoping that I can get there by the end of the year. And so that'd be awesome. But no, I if you're into this comic talk, I like to do a bunch of comic talk over on the Dingiston YouTube. For the most part, I've been good about weekly releases as of recent, and so just trying to make sure I have a constant flow of content has been a lot of fun so far. I talk about a wide variety of comics over there. Yeah, I can't say specific. I'm not sure specifically what the next thing's going to be, but the one thing I can say of what'll be coming up soon is I'm going to we start to delve into the Energon universe, which will be fun. But also something different I've been doing there that I want everyone to check out is I've been doing these Batman The Long Halloween comic dubs, which has been a lot of fun. For Halloween, we did the first issue. For Thanksgiving, we dropped the second issue. As the whole gimmick of the story is that they happen on each of the holidays. And so the plan is to release the edited versions of each of them on the holiday itself. So, check out the first two. And then when Christmas comes, celebrate Christmas on the Dingiston as we do our read through for the Christmas issue and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you can find Rebel Nerd Radio right there, bio.link/Rebel Nerd Radio, where you can find all of our social links. We go live every Tuesday. Well, most every Tuesday, unless something happens, unless life happens. But generally speaking, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we have our other series. In addition to Devil's Den, we've got our Kryptonian Chronicles series that we do, and we do our Batcave series. And we just launched a new Star Wars tabletop role-playing game campaign that Spencer is a part of.
It's a lot of fun. Go check it out.
And yeah, it's called Shadow of the Sun. And yeah, it is a lot of fun. And so make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we've got something else kind of interesting that is going to be starting. We'll make an announcement on this Tuesday's episode of Rebel Nerd Radio. But we've got some surprises in store that's going to change the way you look at podcasting and creators.
Ooh.
But thanks for watching this first episode of Devil's Den, and hope you come back for the next one. See ya.
Bye.